Hi there, Mark Major at the Action Figuratorium, and this is another one of my videos in the What Is series in which I ask the question, what is? And today we're going to be asking the question, what is or what are the Dragon Models action figures? And the answer usually is this. So if you can, I want you guys to stick around. All right, so this video, just so that everyone is aware, is not one of these sort of well-researched kind of Dan Larson Toy Galaxy mini documentaries where I read into a teleprompter and make some fart jokes. No, this is just a very casual, informal kind of conversation, as if you were in the toy aisle with your friend who doesn't really kind of know anything, and they turn to you and they say, "Hey man, what are these Dragon Models action figures?" Well, let's get into exactly what they are. So G.I. Joe kicked off the action figure revolution in the 60s. Barbie came out and it was a doll. They decided to make sort of a boy's version, which was a soldier, and they didn't want to call it a doll because no boy wants to play with dolls, and so they called it an action figure. And the G.I. Joe action figures, World War II figures were popular in the 60s, 70s, up until the 80s, in which Star Wars Kenner figures, the little 4-inch guys, came out, and Hasbro sort of retooled their G.I. Joe line into that scale. They still made the 12-inch 1/6 scale guys for a while, but for the most part they were kind of the back burner until about 2000. Now, in about 2000, 21st Century Toys launched a competitor to their 12-inch G.I. Joe action figures, and they called these guys Ultimate Soldier. I have a video on this, what are Ultimate Soldier. And the main difference, you know, and again, as I always say, is for every Coke there's a Pepsi, but the main difference was that they had a little better sculpted faces, right? The G.I. Joe guys were kind of soft, if you ask me. And they also came with better articulated bodies and just better like outfits and kit, as it were, which ended up spurring Hasbro to up their game, and they came out with a body called the Super Articulated Body, and that is the one that you'll see nowadays that has the trigger finger that moves. And in fact, when Hasbro started doing the Lucasfilm action figures, from when the prequels started to come out, they used those as their basic body. In fact, I have a Count Dooku with the pointer finger on. That means it's a super articulated body. Previous to that, the G.I. Joes have these like sort of hands that have the kung fu grip on them. That's how you can kind of tell. So Ultimate Soldier was sort of eating the lunch of G.I. Joe at the time. The main difference, though, in my opinion, was really the subject matter. Hasbro and their G.I. Joe line pretty much only made kind of like Allied forces of World War II. They only made like American soldiers, right? And they made some different guys. They had like infantrymen and Marines and radio operators, but they didn't really make any German guys, whereas the Ultimate Soldier line introduced a lot of, you know, Axis figures that people can now get to sort of army build and be villains to their G.I. Joes, which kind of actually sort of in some ways, in my opinion, kind of helped out sort of both brands, and so that's the way it probably would have been for a while with those two brands. But all of a sudden, around 2003, this company called Dragon Models, which like 21st Century Toys, had been making, you know, army models, you know, tanks and half-tracks and stuff like that of like, you know, 1/400th scale, 1/32nd scale, all that kind of stuff. They started making their own 1/6 action figure, and they were just even more over the top than the Ultimate Soldier line in every possible way. They came with way better articulated bodies. They had way better sculpted faces. They had way better paint on the faces. There was way more detail on the outfits, the uniforms. I mean, you get. We're going to show you here This is actually a Dragon Models box of a figure, new in box, and you can see here the accessories that it comes with. You get like armbands, you get all sorts of insignias that go on the collars, and there's medals, and you know, way more detailed with the pistols and the clips that go into it. All this sort of what we refer to in the industry as gack that comes with these guys, and it makes them just way more over the top. Not only that, but each guy is a specific character. So like with G.I. Joe and Ultimate Soldier, they're just generic, like infantrymen of like the 101st Division, or paratrooper, or radio operator, or, you know, submarine U-boat captain, something like this. Whereas these guys, all of them have a specific name, regardless of whether they're Axis or Allies figures, and you know, they have really specific faces, and they're just a lot more detailed and researched than the other guys. So we're going to look at their website now, just to give you an idea of how many figures they made and sort of the depth to where they went with it. Let's pop over to dragon-models.com. This is their website. Their website's been up for a long time, and it's looked like this for a long time, and it looks a bit outdated, but don't worry, they're still updating it, and they're still good guys. I think they're located in Taiwan, etc., and you can see the latest things that they've added here, December, October of 2022. So over here on the left are essentially, this is great. This is actually what I like about Dragon Models, is that you can go back and you can look over all the figures that they have released. Now, we look down here to the World War II stuff, and that's kind of the focus. They have done some modern stuff, and when I say modern, I mean like Desert Storm, Onward, that kind of thing, or SWAT team guys. I don't know what's up with people who buy the SWAT team figures. I never figured that out. I'm not really into it, but if you get a cool looking guy who's got the stereoscopic goggles and he's got like a dog with goggles on, they're running around, that might be cool for collecting. But for the most part, the World War II is what's interesting to most people, and that's really what people care about. So we can see that they came up with 73 American soldiers, 29 British, and 22 Soviets. And I'm sure in the Soviets, I'm sure there's like a female sniper. And of course, you know, I grew up as a kid in the 70s and the 80s, and I watched all these World War II films that were popular in the 70s, like Where Eagles Dare. And of course, my favorite at the time was always A Bridge Too Far, which had those British paratroopers in the red berets, and I love the British paratroopers. They're probably my favorite characters from World War II. Can't get enough of that stuff, and I'm sure they got those guys in it. But we can see they came up with 202 German soldiers. So you're going to have guys from the Eastern Front, the Western Front, wintertime guys, summertime guys, Deutsche Afrika Korps, which was the guys who went into the North Africa, that kind of thing. You're going to get paratroopers, you're going to get U-boat captains, you're going to get tank drivers, you're going to get a variety of guys, and they all have individual names and very individual looks, each one of them. Very cool stuff. You can see why people are into this brand. You know, they have delved down. It is very friendly to the adult collector. This is kind of sort of where people go all in. So you can see that if you click on, let's say, the German collection, and it starts with really like 2012 going backwards to 2003, all these guys are all individual figures. In fact, here's a guy who he's a machine gunner, and he comes looks like he comes with a bike. Remember that? They thought that they could put machine guns on bikes. I don't know if you guys knew that, but there's this thing in World War II where they thought, if we can put a machine gun on it, we can send it out into battle. And down here, it's like you just go page after page after page. And this is what I like about it, is if you find one of these guys used and you're like, I don't really know who this guy is, you can search through their website until you find him. You'll find the year, and you can find pretty much all the stuff that he came with. Now, the older stuff, the further back you go, the less pics they have. And that's kind of a bummer, because sometimes you get to the very end and they just have one picture of the guy, whereas these new ones, they have several pictures, and they're really well done pics. So just to give you an idea, they have a lot of figures, and they go the whole gambit. And this is just the Axis, right? This is just the Germans, okay? Like I said, there's Soviets, there's Brits, There's Americans. Everyone gets a chance to be in this lineup. And you can see that they pumped out a lot of these guys, and I'll tell you, they're pretty cool. And when I come across them in the wild used, I always get excited because they're just so over the top, in my opinion. Now, I would like to mention sort of what I feel are the three differences between, say, like the Ultimate Soldiers and the Dragon models, right? Let's cut over to, oh geez, camera 2. OBS is barking at me. I don't know if you guys heard that. So on the left is an Ultimate Soldier. You've seen this guy before on one of my shows. And on the right is the Dragon model guy. This is Egon. He's a NCO, non-commissioned officer, and he's in the Afrika Korps. I love getting Afrika Korps guys because I'm a big fan of Indiana Jones. I have an Indiana Jones 12-inch figure, and you can always throw these German Afrika Korps guys into whatever Indiana Jones is doing. It's kind of a favorite of mine. So the first thing is that, and it may not really show up that well in this particular shot, but the Dragon model guys are about a ½ inch taller. They're just slightly bigger than the G.I. Joe Ultimate Soldier figures. And so that ends up meaning that they have a slightly bigger head. Okay, now this is important because when I bought this Dragon model guy, I got him used and I didn't have a helmet for him. And I've talked about this before, this lament I have when buying stuff used, where when you buy stuff loose and you're missing something, you think, okay, he's just missing a helmet, I can pick one up later. Well, guess what? If you go to eBay and you try and pick up one of these helmets for him, right, you're going to pay $10 minimum. Because it's going to cost $5 to ship it, no matter how small it is. And a guy's not going to sell it to you where he only makes a dime. He's got to make some money out. So he's going to charge you $5 plus another $5. You're going to be into it for $10. So if you found this guy for $20 used, which would be a great price, if you want to get a helmet, it's going to bump it up to now $30. So just take that into account if you're one of these people who goes out toy hunting looking for this stuff and it's incomplete, that you're probably going to end up spending some money down the line. In fact, you may end up spending more money trying to make him complete with all the accessories than you pay for the actual figure. Take that into account. You may opt to, if you really want a character for any reason, you may opt to try and find one just still new in the box to get everything. Just a warning. But as I said, these guys are just a hair bigger, and that means you have to buy the Dragon model's helmet, because a generic replacement helmet from Ultimate Soldier or G.I. Joe or some other brand is not going to fit on the head. It's too small. You got to get that one. Now, in fact, I couldn't find a Desert Afrika Korps helmet for this guy, or the Stahlhelm as it's known. So I just bought a generic gray one, and I had this desert paint that I bought from Miniatures, and I just kind of sponged it on, because that's really what these guys did anyways. They took their helmets and they just painted them brown when they went to Africa to lose in battle to the Brits and the Americans as it came down. And so I made the helmet actually kind of look like that, and we can get a close-up of that in a little bit. So keep that in mind. So that's one thing, is that the bodies are a little bit bigger, they stand a little bit taller, and the heads are a little bit bigger. Okay, the second thing is that you're going to find that the faces on these guys are more unique. They have better sculpting, more interesting, unique features. They really go for character, and they've really come up with some of these. If you go to their website and look at some of the faces on them, they've really got unique faces. Now, those of you who have collected the 12-inch G.I. Joes know for a fact that there's this one guy's face that they have used over and over and over again, and every time you see him, it almost becomes a joke. It's so funny looking at some of these G.I. Joe faces that come up over and over again. In fact, they made an African-American soldier, and they just used the same G.I. Joe face, but they just painted it brown, or they dyed it brown or whatever, and it starts to become kind of a laugh. So it's great to get new faces. It's great to get interesting faces. Also, they put a little better paint on them. Now, I don't know how to tell you exactly how you would tell the two apart, Ultimate Soldier or Dragon Models action figures, other than to say that you will know it when you see it, and the more that you look at these guys, the more you will get it. So the faces are different, they're more unique, they're better sculpted, they're better deco, the bodies are a little bit bigger. Now the third thing is, and I'm going to have to grab the figure to show you this. I'll just walk over here for a second and come back. This is what you will note about the, see, check out the helmet there. Isn't that cool? I think you guys think that's cool. This is the way that you're going to know if you're out there, you're going to thrift stores, you go to Goodwills, you go to Red, White, and Blues, you go to Salvation Armies, you go to yard sales, you go to estate sales, you go to garage sales. Maybe you like see somebody who's selling a lot of toys on like Craigslist or Facebook, and you don't know, is this guy G.I. Joe? Is he Ultimate Soldier? Is he blah, blah, blah? Here's how you're going to know. And these guys have great articulated bodies. But check this out. You hear that? The clicking arms. They individually click when you turn them. That's how you know you've got a Dragon Models, and that's how you know you've got gold. So if you're an antique picker, a toy picker, maybe you came to this video, you don't collect toys, don't know anything about toys, but you resell stuff and you found some things and you're like, I'm not sure what these guys are, and you stumble on this video, well, here is the big answer. See if the arms click like this, okay? That is the sign that you have the real deal. And these guys, as I stated before, they go for more money than Ultimate Soldier, and Ultimate Soldier goes for more money than G.I. Joe. Not 60s collectible G.I. Joe. That's a different, the people who collect those are weirdos. I don't know who those guys are. I'm not one of those guys. I go for toys that I can play with because I like to do photography. I like to set them up. I like to display them. I especially love any guys that can play nice with other guys. Like I said, this guy works great as somebody who's like interrogating Indiana Jones, that kind of thing. Can't get enough of these kind of guys who do that. I'm always down with these dudes in brown. So that's the three things that are going to tell you that you've got a Dragon Models figure. Other than that, there's not that much I can necessarily tell you about the line, other than to say that sometime around 2012 they kind of quit making these figures and they just sort of dived back into making models. Although if you look at the website today, you'll see that oh geez, how do I get back there? Blah, blah, blah. You'll see that the most recent things they've been doing is they're just putting out 1/6 scale guns, because these things can go with any line, toy line, their toy line or someone else's toy line. You know, you can always put an AK-47 in anybody's hand. Anyone can, like, you know, run around with a Glock and stuff like that. And so you see they've been doing that. They've also, it looks like they've been doing some kind of reissues of some of the kits of just gear, like not actually making the figures, but just putting out, like, you know, the uniforms with all the accessories, that kind of thing. So it seems like that might be a cool thing. If you picked up those, then you could take whatever figure you want and you could outfit them with that, etc. But my feeling is that what has happened is that if you look at the story of Ultimate Soldier, they went for a pretty good solid 10 years making figures, and they also made some cool vehicles. They make a great Kubelwagen, which is those cool like little staff cars that all of, like, the officers drove around in. They also made a cool Kettenrad, which is that like half motorcycle, half track that they drive around on. Actually, in World War II, they used those to just like lay cable for their you know, communications, telephone line to talk to each other. It's kind of, you know, maybe like drive ammo around to the front, things like that. Ultimate Soldier made those. Those look really great. These guys didn't really make any vehicles. I saw that they did make a Panzer II 1/6 scale. That would be like, I've never even seen one. I only know about it through the website. I don't even know where you get those. I don't know who's got one. I don't know how many they made. I don't know anything about that. But these guys essentially, you know, because people who bought Ultimate Soldier liked them because they were better. They were just, at the time when they came out in like 2000, they were better bodies than G.I. Joe. They were better sculpts than G.I. Joe, better uniforms than G.I. Joe. And then when Dragon Models came out, over time, They really ate the lunch of Ultimate Soldier, and Ultimate Soldier essentially shut down making 1/6 scale guys. They went back to doing model kits, which, you know, they didn't stop doing model kits, but they specialized back on model kits. And they actually, in fact, went down to 4-inch guys, 1/18th scale guys, Army soldiers now, and they're not cheap either. They're expensive. They're as expensive as a Joy Toy or an Acid Rain. If you're not familiar with those two lines, you should just do a quick Google search and check those out. Those are both worth investigating. And so now they've sort of, you know, there was too much competition with these other guys, and so they got out of the 1/6, Ultimate Soldier got out of the 1/6 scale, and then eventually Dragon Models got out of the 1/6 scale. And my opinion is that that times changed, and that the people who were the people that were buying these were probably getting older. They were probably, you know, the end of the baby boomers, the starting of the Gen Xers who were raised on like World War II like me and stuff like this, and they kind of got old and they stopped collecting. Most people that were buying it stopped buying World War II figures and they started buying comic book figures. So, you know, what happens is I believe the market kind of shifted to people now buying 1/6 scale Batmans and Jokers and Harley Quinns and Hot Toys and, you know, that kind of stuff. Those sort of like really, really expensive $200 toys on up. And these guys sort of phased that out. The market sort of shifted. And as you can see by looking at the Dragon Models site, they sort of 2012, it just sort of and then there's just a big gap there. You can still find these figures used on eBay loose. You can also still find them new in package. In fact, you can still find some of the stuff new in package on toy sites where they just have new old stock sitting around, and you know, they paid whatever money for them. The retailers paid 45 bucks for them, so they got to get their $90 for them, and there's just nobody buying them. You know, for that $90 you could buy Mafex toys, you can get Mezco toys, you know, and a lot of people just don't do 1/6 anymore. Everyone's really gone to 1/12. So I'm surprised that more people, toy stores aren't dumping these things at this point, that they still have them. But if you do a search, you'll find a few cats online who have them. They're you know, it's not like totally rare and unique. It's just that people really want to get their money for them. And in fact, I myself picked this up. I bought a sort of a group of toys, a lot, as it were. There's a couple things I wanted from it, some things I didn't want. I love World War II 1/6 guys. I love Dragon Models, and so I was like, oh, cool, I'll pick this up. But you know what? This is worth more money to someone else in the box than it is to me in the box, because I would take it out and I would do all sorts of goofy stuff with it, and then the value goes down. So this thing, what I'm holding in my hand, is probably going to end up on eBay, and it's probably going to end up on eBay soon because I'm trying to raise money to buy some Mythic Legions figures. If you haven't, check out my video on the latest wave they're releasing, Necronominus, which is a fantastic wave. It is a fantastic line. The Mythic Legions 6-inch figures are amazing looking. They're fun to play with. They've got a fun factor through the roof. The value of those things goes way up. I love fantasy figures. I was raised on fantasy figures, and those guys are the best looking figures they've ever made. I think it's an all-in wave, and so I'm trying to raise some money to buy at least some of them. I'm going to get a few pieces because they're super cool looking. And this guy might end up on the chopping block. Again, not because I don't love Dragon Models. I clearly do, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this video. But because this is worth more to the collector than it is to the casual play guy, which is kind of what I would describe myself. I think I'm just going to sort of conclude by saying that this is really, again, like I said before, this is just an informal, casual recap of the line, as if I was talking to a friend, explaining to them exactly what they were. This isn't like the be-all, end-all documentary. In fact, I don't really have a lot of insider knowledge or even outsider knowledge on Dragon Models figures. So if you are someone who does know this kind of information, please, absolutely 100% share it with us. Put it in the comments, write what you know, write your opinion, say anything you want. Don't necessarily berate me unless like you need to, but I want to learn. I want to hear from you. I want to hear all about this stuff. I'm always looking to raise my my intelligence on these things, and go up a level. So with that, I will definitely 100% guarantee that I will catch you guys on the next one.